Have you ever just stopped and wondered, is my life on a set path or do I really have free will? Well, today, we're going to dive into a pretty fascinating framework that tackles that exact question. We're drawing straight from a text called A Summary of Reincarnation to map out the soul's journey as it sees it, from a totally fixed destiny to ultimate freedom.
I mean, this is one of the biggest questions out there, right? Are we just following a script that's already been written for us, or are we actually the ones holding the pen? The text we're digging into today offers a pretty provocative answer. It suggests that, yeah, for most of us, the path is already set. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll explore this idea of a fixed orbit for our lives. Then we'll find out about the one key that supposedly unlocks our free will. From there, we'll look at the good and bad places you can end up, the upward and downward paths, and finally, we'll see how the text itself tells us to think about this whole thing. All right, let's jump right into the first big idea from the source material, this concept that, by default, our lives are following a really predictable, almost locked-in path. The source uses a really powerful way to explain this. Just picture a planet in space for a second. Its path isn't random, right? It's pulled into a very specific orbit by these massive gravitational forces. Well, the text argues that a normal human life works the exact same way. We're being guided along by all these external influences, whether we see them or not. And this brings us to a super important definition of destiny, or Mingyan. In this way of thinking, it's not some big mystery. It's a fixed path, a direct result of all those outside forces acting on you. The text even claims this trajectory is so predictable that a truly wise person could basically look at someone and map out their entire life. Kind of like how an astronomer can tell you exactly where a comet will be in 50 years. Okay, but if we're all just stuck on this fixed orbit, is there any hope for us to change things? According to this text, the answer is a huge yes. But it all comes down to one single pivotal moment, a moment that can totally shatter that predetermined path. This is it. This is the big turning point. The text calls it awakening spiritual consciousness, and it's presented as the one and only way to break free from that orbit. This is the moment a person's awareness flips inward, and they go from being this passive object getting pushed around by outside forces to becoming the active pilot of their own life. And you can really see the difference here. It's like night and day. Before this awakening, you've got a fixed destiny. Your path is predictable. Your life is controlled by things outside of you. But after, everything flips. Destiny is something you master yourself. The path becomes unpredictable. In fact, the text says even the best fortune teller in the world couldn't tell your future anymore. Because now you're internally controlled. You can change your own course whenever you want. So once you actually gain the power to steer your own ship, where can you go? Well, the source lays out a very clear cosmic hierarchy, all based on a person's defining virtues. Let's start at the very top, with the highest planes of existence you can reach. Now check this out. These are the 5 highest paths, and each one is a direct result of perfecting a specific quality. It's beautifully symmetrical. If you embody ultimate love, you become a heavenly immortal. Ultimate goodness leads to becoming a Buddha. Ultimate joy, a deity. You see the pattern? Each destination is a perfect reflection of the virtue you mastered. Now, just below those super high-level states are what you might call the paths of earthly virtue. If your life is defined by utmost loyalty, you're said to get a life of nobility. Filial piety leads to a life filled with blessings. A life spent accumulating good deeds and virtue leads to wealth. And what about a life that was just fair? Well, according to this, that brings you right back to the human path, to continue the journey. Of course, this framework doesn't just map out the ways up. It provides an equally detailed description for the other direction, the downward paths that are the result of more negative qualities. And the logic here is just as consistent. A life defined by ignorance, that leads to a rebirth in the animal kingdom. A cold, indifferent existence leads to the plant kingdom, and the consequences get even more severe from there. Viciousness leads to the ghost path, tyranny to something called the frozen layer, and pure cruelty to a layer of fire. Each outcome is presented as a direct, natural consequence of a person's core nature. So after laying out this entire, incredibly detailed cosmic map, how are we supposed to take all this? Is it meant to be some absolute law we have to believe? Actually, the text itself gives us a very clear answer on that. This is a really crucial point. The text presents itself not as some unchangeable truth, but as a guide. It's described as a set of standards and inspirations for people to reference. So, in other words, it's less of a rule book you have to follow blindly and more of a map you can use for your own exploration. And so the text ends with a challenge. It basically asks anyone who has awakened their consciousness to go and verify this framework for themselves. So I'll just leave you with that same question. Looking at this whole intricate system of cause and effect, of destiny and choice, what parts of it resonate with you? What, in your own experience, would you want to try and verify?